RESTful web services, starting the YouTube stream. So I believe I fixed my network issue that I had from last week. So I don't believe we'll have the same issue this time around. All right. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right, let's give everybody a couple more minutes to join. Anybody have a question before we get started?
Professor, I had one. It was like a concern about the grading. I actually forgot to add the TAs to the new repository as collaborators, and I think I was waiting for the assignment to be graded, and it wasn't. And I was wondering why it's not being graded. And like Canvas didn't give me a notification saying your the TA has given an input. And I went and checked later, and I saw that the TA had said that I can't open it. So I added everyone to the repository, and I also mailed the TAs and everyone. Could you like just maybe?
Yeah, no, just let the TAs send a private
Yeah,
post
I
to
did.
all
I did. I was just.
instructors.
Yeah,
We'll
it's.
look into
I'm just
it.
telling you because it's been kind of a while now, so that I just wanted
Yeah,
you to know because
yeah,
yeah, and I'm
no,
so
no, no.
sorry for it. I was just so I forgot about adding it to the new
Right.
everyone to the new repository, and I just forgot about it. So.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, you'll get the grading a little later. That's all.
Yeah,
But
thank you
yeah,
so much.
that's very common. That's happening to us. That students are not, either forget to give
Yeah,
access, or it times out, or and then the TAs can't get in
yeah,
and grade. Yeah,
yeah. I've mailed the TA too, so hopefully she'll take a look at it. Thank you so
yeah.
much.
I have 13. All right, it's time. So let's get going. All right, welcome everybody. So the network connection from last week, I believe it was solved, so we shouldn't have the same issues that we had. I also did, it got fixed for the next section. So that recording, I'm sharing it with everybody. I put it as part of both playlists, so that both sections can take a look at that. And there were no network issues whatsoever. So definitely, we know that we did fix that. That we did fix that. So. And we are focusing on the next upcoming assignments that where we're talking about RESTful web services, and I'd like to continue working on that. Let's see. Hear me, hi professor. I have doubt regarding project implementation. Can we implement few pages using Material UI and using right for the project? You can use whatever you want, right? It's for the project, it's non-restrictive on the same technologies that we've been using in class. We've been using a middle tier we've been using Java as our middle tier, but definitely you could use other things if you feel more comfortable with Python or PHP or whatever you want to use for the middle tier. You're welcome to use that instead. Same thing for the styling. Unlike the homeworks where you are encouraged to use Bootstrap and we grade you on it, the project is much more lenient. You can use any library to make it look spectacular. So yeah, go ahead and use Material UI. The assignment is, I believe, due this Wednesday. I'm gonna get you going as far as I can, um, and yeah, I think we might have to consider moving it a day or two. But I still want to see how far we can get to this coming Wednesday. All right. All right. So any questions before we get started? Okay, let's review where we left off last time around. As I mentioned earlier, we are talking about the RESTful web services. That is the topic for this week, and so let's review where we left off. Let's see, on the server side, what we did is that we started off with creating a data model. Right, under Java, we created a model, which was the widget. And the intention was that we want to be able to CRUD this data, right? We want to create widgets, read a list of widgets, delete widgets, update widgets, right? Just like we have been doing for all the other data models, right? We've been able to CRUD, create, read, update, delete courses, modules, lessons, topics, right? We've been doing that for 2 months already, but we've been using my implementation of a server. So this first server implementation, you're learning how to create your own middle tier that allows you to create, read, update, delete data models that you create on your own, right? And in particular, we're learning how to do it with this simple data model widget. And so it has several primitive data types, right? Just integers, longs, strings, but certainly you could have dates and whatnot. Any chance of a deadline for the project prototype? No. Yeah, I'll make a post. I need to revise all those dates since we've been moving some of the assignments back. But basically, it will be the we will be asking you to meet with your TAs and demo what you got so far. But I think you might need a couple, a week or two more for that. What is the deadline for assignment 5? Assignment 5 is this one, right? Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the prototype. So the prototype should include a enough demonstrations of you knowing how to use whatever third-party API you've chosen, right? So in the assignment, in the project description, we say that you need to choose a third-party API, whatever that is, right? Whether it's a sport API or whether it's a weather API or it's a news or movies, entertainment, events that are happening, is it food, whatever it is that you choose, you need to be able to search with a unstructured query, right, where you can provide either the title of a movie or the name of a recipe or your favorite sports team, and it should come back with a result that you can render, maybe 10 items that come back, and you can render them any which way. It could be tabular format or maybe a grid or however you want to display. It doesn't matter. So it needs to be able to support that, be able to search some third-party API, whatever that is. Okay, that's your choice. Then it also needs to support a subsequent query where you choose one of those items. And that subsequent query should be able to retrieve a detail of that item. So for instance, I might choose to search for Batman, right? And Batman comes back with 10 items that meet my criteria for Batman. And 10 movies that match Batman. And that first query might be very shallow, had very little detail, maybe the titles of the movie, maybe the rating, maybe it might also have maybe a thumbnail of the movie, maybe, and that's it. But then when I click on Batman or a particular movie, it should be able to do a subsequent query that goes out to the same API asking for the details of that individual object, right? So if I click on, the 2 towers of Lord of the Rings, then it should make a subsequent query that retrieves details about that one object. and it might come back with a lot more detailed information, maybe the directors, the writers, the cast, maybe some reviews that come back for that one object. Okay, so basically at least those two things, right? One, a summary query, right, that comes back with 10, 20 items that match a criteria, and then a subsequent detailed query that retrieves data for a specific item. None of this needs to be stored in a database. None of this needs to be stored in a server or anything like that, right? It just should show that you are confident about the API that you chose, right? And it'll give you a chance to practice and see if that API actually works for you, okay? Let's see, there's another question on the chat. Is it okay if our external API handles details and initial search as one query? Sure, yes. Usually the API is the first one, it allows you to select what it is that you want. Since the first query might be a broad query, right? That, what's going on around Boston, right? Typically, answering a query with too much detail, it would be a very, very chatty, huge amounts of data that probably the UI is not going to even use. Okay, and so usually these APIs will have at least two queries where one gives you a summary, but then a subsequent query with a unique identifier or some kind of token, allows you to ask more details about one item of that initial query. I will demonstrate this in the upcoming lecture on Wednesday. We will build a prototype together. I'll build one for you here in class, and so I will illustrate what it is that I mean. Okay. All right, let's focus and see if I can get you as far as I can on this assignment. Let's see. We created a data model, right, that has this primitive data types and the setters and getters. We also created a service that is keeping track of several instances of these widgets, right? So we started off with just 4 widgets, and then we created several CRUD operations that allow you to do some create a widget, also find all widgets, which we said was a very uncommon use, probably never use that function. Find widgets for a given topic, so we can filter by that topic ID. The way we are modeling that is that the widgets have the ID of the topic that they belong to. In your implementation, this will be an actual topic ID that is stored in the generic server, right? So that ID will come from there based on the topic that you choose. So you can create a widget for a specific topic. You can find widgets for a specific topic. You can find a widget by their ID, and we're left to do these two. So let's talk about implementing these two CRUD operations: update widget and delete widget. To expose this data model, right, together, all these functions and the actual data is what we refer to as the data model. So we then expose this data model through this API so that you can post and send data across the wire from a user interface. We can provide the ID for the topic that we want to create this new widget. We parse the widget from the body. We make sure that the widget knows who their parent topic is, and then we use the service to store the information, right? So the controller, this is a controller, is the role of the controller is to expose the data model to a RESTful API, right? It doesn't know anything about the data, doesn't know how it's being stored. It shouldn't care. That is not the job of the controller. The job of actually storing and knowing what the data model is doing, that's the service responsibility. The actual storage in the database, that will be next week, right? We will create a kind of like a data access object using a very common design pattern of interacting with permanent storage, a database, right? But that's next week. For now, the service is just storing it in memory, right? So that if we restart the server, right, all those changes are gone, right? But next week we'll store it permanently. We also are able to retrieve the widgets by for a particular topic. Again, we exposed it where we're following this this naming convention where we say the parent, the ID of the parent, and then the children that you want. Final widget, that's probably not going to be used at all. And here's where we can find an individual widget. All right, so that's on the server side. So we call this together, this whole thing, we call it the middle tier, right? It's the middle tier. It's what it's in between the user interface and the storage, right? Permanent storage, right? In the middle, you have this middle tier. And together, the service and the controller together, they make the web service. Okay, the controller is the web part of a web service, and the service is the service part of a web service. Okay, and the reason we split it is that this service here can manipulate the data, and it doesn't really care that the data is being accessed through the web, because that's not a responsibility. Its only care is maintaining and managing and the life cycle of the data, right? But it's agnostic to how the data is being accessed, right? This is just as well could be used by the middle tier internally, right, without ever going out to the web, right? You could still use this this service, this widget service, to manipulate, right, access, remove, update, delete widgets, eventually database. Excuse me. Okay, so on the client side, what we did is that we basically did what we've been doing for for the last couple months, right? We created a widget list component that is right now it's using these hooks for when it loads, when the component first loads, right? It reads the topic ID from the parameters, okay, using the hook from React Router DOM, and then uses this fetch, right, to retrieve the widgets for that particular topic. Now here I put a to-do, right? Do not leave this code here, right? Make sure that you apply good practice and you move this into a separate file that implements the widget service, right? So the widget service JS, okay? And this state management, right now we're handling the state here, right, in this component. And again, let's not do that. Let's move that over to where it belongs in the reducer. Okay. So we implemented the create widget, which talks to the create widget for topic, right, using the URL that the middle tier is expecting, right? Topics, topic ID, and widgets. And we're passing a default widget that is type heading, size 2, and a default text. And we also, actually, that's it. That's all we did, right? Fetch the widgets for a topic and create a widget for a topic. That's as far as we got. We also showed you an example on how we could render these widgets, right? We were iterating over the widgets, we're mapping over them, right? And each one of them, depending on whether the type is a heading widget or paragraph widget, right? We display one or the other, right? And implemented the widget independently outside, right? In its own set of components. Okay, everybody good? Okay, so let's keep going, right? Let's keep going. Let's work on being able to update, delete these widgets, right? And so what we're gonna do is that well, one thing that we could do is that inside of the widgets we could create, being able to remove, edit the widget. But then we would have to implement the same thing for paragraph widget. So instead, we're going to implement outside, right? Outside right here, right before the widgets, a couple buttons that we can use for both, right? The heading widget and the paragraph widget. So for instance, we might decide that we want to edit this particular widget, right? So how do we do that? Well, we could put right, we could put here an icon, right, like with a cog that allows us to maybe edit this or put this widget in edit um, mode, right? So this may be maybe a cog like this, right? Now notice that now we have this cog. They all have this cog, right? And we might do a float right. So now this cog is on the right-hand side, and if we click it, presumably we would put this widget in edit mode. Okay, that means that each widget we can maintain the state whether that we are editing or not editing that particular widget, and then decide to put that particular widget in edit mode. Okay. So let's do that. Let's what we can do is that if we click it, maybe what we'll do is that we'll update some state for the widget so that it knows whether it's editing or not, right? So for instance, we can say that on click, right? What we could do is that we can update the state of the widget. We can say set. Let's see. What do we actually? Well, let's see what states do we have. What states do we have? We have widgets, set widgets. Okay, so it looks like we can't update a particular widget, right? So so maybe we can have a function here that does it, right? What could we do? We could maybe maintain a like a map on whether we are editing a particular widget or not, right? Or what we could do is that we can have a single flag, right, of which widget are we editing. We could do that, right? So let's do that. And we could say const use state, right? And let's keep track on the widget that we're editing, right? We could say widget. We can say set widget, and initially it's no widget. Okay. And so what we could do here is that when we click on it, we can say on click set widget this particular widget. As if we are like selecting this particular widget. And then we can check to see, right? Let's just put here which is the ID of the widget that we just selected. And so just to see if it works. So for instance, if I click on this one, notice that it says 234. See that? 234. So we have the ID of each one. See that? Perfect. So we have the ID of the widget that we're editing. So each one of these, right? Each one of these widgets, perhaps we can send it a message of knowing whether it's being edited or not being edited, and so that it could then decide to render its editing form or not, right? Because remember in the assignment, right? Each of these widgets has a way of editing, right? The paragraph or the heading, right? So let's do that. So we can say, are we editing? Are we editing this widget? Well, we're editing if as we are iterating, the ID of the widget is the same as the this widget variable. It's overloading, or it's overriding this widget over here, right? And so it's going to get confusing. So let's clean this up a little bit. So because this is widget, I mean, yeah, this is always true, right? This is always true. So let's call this, let's rename this. And so this is a local variable, so I'm going to put an underscore in front of it. And this is different than this widget. Okay. Okay. So now each of these each one of these widgets can have, right, whether they're being edited or not, right? Editing. And we can, depending on whether we're being edited or not, right, we can toggle between our two versions, right, of either showing the form or not showing the form, right? So for instance, for the heading widget, what we'd like to be able to do is we would like to have an input field that it shows the text, right? Right, and then another one which shows the sizes that we can choose, right? So something like select the different sizes of the widgets, right? So it might have option heading 1. Oh, spell it wrong. Two, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6. Right. So here's my heading widget, and I either show it or don't show it depending on whether I'm being edited or not. Right. So let's do that. We can say, we either show this or not. So maybe we can put this inside of a div. This whole thing, put it inside of a div. And then decide that if we are editing, right, then we show this div. Otherwise, we don't. Okay. So for instance, we're editing. There we go. So we show this heading. If we click on this one, notice that we're editing this other one. See that? So we're only showing one at a time. You could implement it, right? If you want to be able to edit more than one, perhaps you have to maintain like a map of all the widgets that are being edited. I mean, you could do that. But here we're just maintaining a single selected widget that we're editing. We could have done the same thing for when we're editing lessons and modules. Here we have each one know about its editing state, right? Because we have it in an editable item that maintains its own state, whether it's being edited or not, right? Here we're maintaining that state outside, right? And they all depend on which one selected. It displays the form or doesn't display the form, right? So for the paragraph, it would be something similar, right? In the paragraph, we would have maybe like a text area. And the text area, we might show it or not show it. Right. So first we style it a little bit. So this is form control. And we show it if we are editing or not. So editing. So are we editing? If we are, then we display the text area. Otherwise, we don't. Right. So for instance, if I click on this paragraph, notice that the text area appears, or this one appears. Make sense? All right. Okay. So also, if we are editing, we might be able to get to remove or delete this particular paragraph. So maybe show the item to remove. Yes. So for instance, what we could do is that in the top level one, right? Not only do we have the icon for editing, but we might also have like a trash can, right? So maybe this is like a trash can, trash. So there's trash, and if we click on but right, we would maybe only show that if we are editing the widget, right? So and we would also have here a save, right? Kind of like a save. So maybe we have here like a check mark like that. Okay. So yeah, so how do we do that? So let's see. Let's do the check one first. Let's do the check one. So the check one needs to save, right? But also it should remove the fact that we're editing. And so what we could do is that we can set the set widget. We can maybe set it to empty object, right? So that we're not editing any widget anymore, right? Let's try that. So for instance, if I say okay, notice that I'm not editing the paragraph. So I can edit this one. I can say okay, it's gone. See that? Obviously, this would go out to the server, right? And any changes that I might have made, right? Any changes would go out to the server. We haven't done that yet. But first, let's work on these, right? We don't want to show these all the time. Instead, what we could do is that we could say that if there's a widget, then, meaning if we are editing, then we show these two. If there is no widget selected, then we show the cog. Okay, maybe it's backwards. Okay, let's see. Selected. Okay. That didn't work. Widgets. If okay, so probably what we want if we'd say if widget is not null. How's that? If it's not null, and if this is if it is null. How's that? And so let's see. And that if we say if this is a save, okay, the cog sets it to something that is different than null. So if it is not null, okay, so maybe we should initialize it to null. Yeah, let's initialize this to null. I guess not. Oh, okay, all right, because this is right, we're checking against this null over here, right? Where here we're checking against this, and so this comes out to be null. This comes out to be null. Okay, no, we can't do that. All right, so let's do it empty object. But if it's an empty object, then how do we check for this? So widget, if it's not the empty object, can I do that? And if it's equal to the empty object, no. Let's see, what are we gonna do? Okay, I guess this is the best thing, right? We're just gonna check to see if the ID matches, right? So if we are being edited, editing. So if we are being edited, then show that, and otherwise, if it's not. Okay, let's see that. All right, there we go. Now it works. Perfect. Okay, let's keep going. Right, so let's this is going to give us a chance to implement the update and the delete. See that? Right, so let's do the delete first. Let's do the delete. Okay, so if we click on the delete, where is the delete? Let's see. That's the trash can right here, right? We're going to call delete widget, right? And it's going to have let's pass in the ID of the widget that we want to delete. There we go. This function doesn't exist, so let's implement it right here. So const delete widget, and this is the ID of the widget. And what we're going to do is, again, we're going to do just a fetch like we always do, but we would not implement it here, right? We would implement it actually in where? In the widget service, right? So let's do that. We'll do fetch and the URL. This is the URL. I'm just going to copy it. So notice in the server side, on the server side, where do we have delete? Okay, so we don't have delete implemented anywhere, right? So we need to implement it. But the URL should be as follows. It should be in the server, in the controller. Right, we haven't implemented it yet. It should be this ID, right? Like that, right? Where it's widget, right? And then the ID, where you have the ID of the widget that you're deleting. And it doesn't matter whether it's in a topic or not. I just want to remove the widget. Okay, so I'm going to use that. So it's going to look something like, public void delete widget, and it's going to be mapped to this ID right here, this URL. And instead of a get, right, we're going to be sending a delete. We're going to be sending, instead of a post or a get or a put, we're going to be sending a delete, right, as part of our HTTP method, right? And I'm going to pass you the ID of the widget, right? And I'm going to parse that, just like I parse all these other ones, right? And then I would remove it. I'm going to return whatever the service returns. And the service would have a delete widget that is agnostic to the HTTP world, right? So it doesn't care about paths, it doesn't care about body or post or delete, right? It just understands IDs. Okay, and this doesn't exist, so let's implement it. And so where is it? Okay, so here it is, right? Oh, it looks like it returns an integer. So integer. So there it is. So how do we delete it? We would delete it by removing it from this array. We would need to find, we know the ID, we have to find where that widget is and remove it from the array, right? So we'll do that. That's easy, right? We're just going to iterate over the loop. I'm going to say we're looking for an index of the widget that we want to remove. We'll start off with -1. And so we'll say, okay, well, iterate over all the widgets in the widgets array, looking for the widget whose ID matches is equal to the ID that we're passing in as an argument. Right, so if this is true, then we found our widget. So the index, oh, we don't have an index here. So let's start off with we don't have a counter. Okay, we'll say int counter. I guess we could use a regular for loop. How's that? We'll do int I for index. Let's start at 0. I less than widgets dot length or size. I plus plus. Okay, so this would be we'll say widget w is widgets dot get at the index of I. Okay, so if it's equal, then the index that we're looking for is I, right? And so now we found it. We know which widget we want to remove. So we can use just this here. We can say widgets dot remove, right? And we can pass the index. So we're removing it from the array. So what we'll do is we'll say, if index is greater than or equal to 0, meaning we found it, we find it, we do a remove, and we return a 1 as in success. Okay. If we didn't find it, otherwise we just return -1, as in we were not successful. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's try it out. We need to invoke this delete, right, on the server. API widgets WID. Right? So again, this is a part of the convention, right? The convention is that if you are talking to the the elements that you are manipulating or CRUDing, right? Basically, it's the noun of the object set that you are manipulating, right? So like widgets, like that. So that means that you're manipulating or you're referring to all the widgets. If you add an identifier at the end, then it means that you're talking about that specific, a particular instance of a widget within that collection. Right? Whether you are retrieving that one widget, then it's a get, or if you are removing that one widget, then it's a delete. But notice that the URL is the same. See that? Again, that's part of the REST convention, right? Also, part of the REST convention is that if you are dealing with relationships between one object and another object, the convention says that you first list the parent, right, with a unique identifier of who the parent you're talking about, and then all the collections, right, of the objects that belong to that parent. So these are all the widgets within the topics. So posting means you are creating or adding a new widget to the already existing list of widgets, right? Whereas here, you're doing a get on that. That means that you want all the widgets that are under the context of that particular topic, right? Again, this is part of the RESTful API convention. All right, so let's try this out. This delete, and let me restart the server. So as that's restarting, here we need to generate that delete, right? And the URL is as follows, right? It's /widgets and then the ID of the widget that we are removing. All right, so here's ID. Okay. And okay, then let's close this. The method is delete. And then whatever comes back from the server, we can ignore. What we're going to do is that the same thing that we used to do when we were using the generic server, right? We got a response, presumably some kind of status. We need to update our UI, and so our UI basically is going to be iterating over the widgets that we already have and making sure that we remove the widget that we are deleting. Yes, so basically recalculate the list of widgets, right? Set widgets. So widgets, and because we're calculating the new list of widgets based on the previous one, we're going to use the syntax where it's a function, right? You take in the functions. Notice that here we're not using that syntax, right? We're just setting the widgets blindly, right? And because it doesn't depend on the previous value, right? We're just replacing whatever widgets you have there. We just find whatever the service has, and then those are the widgets. But here, right, because we are updating that array, right, we're going to need to use the other syntax. We're going to say set widgets. Okay, well, so set widgets. Okay, and so this is a function. And so notice the syntax, right? The syntax here. Oh yeah, no, we used the syntax here. Okay, we did use the syntax. Basically, we take the old widgets, right, and then append a new widget to create a brand new widget. Whereas here we didn't use that syntax. This syntax, it says, blindly replace whatever widgets you have there with these array, right? But this syntax, right, takes the old widgets It allows you to calculate a new set of widgets. And whatever this returns, whatever this function returns, is going to be the new set of widgets. Okay, so what is this? We got the old widgets, and the new widgets are going to be what? We're going to return, okay, let's see, basically we're going to map over the old, right, old widgets. So we're going to say, widgets map over that. We're going to return whatever this returns. So as we iterate over each widget, we have to check to see, do we want to keep this widget or we don't want to keep this widget? So I guess it's not a map, right? I guess it's a filter. It's a filter. So we're looking at each widget. So do we keep it or not? Right. So, well, if the widget ID is equal, right, to the ID of the widget that we are removing, if it is, then I don't want it. Okay. So is that it? So I'm going to turn false. Well, I guess I can say if it's not, right, this just returns true. This whole thing returns true. Okay. All right. So let's. Obviously, this can be written more tersely because it's just one single thing, so we don't really need this. Okay. So let's restart. Let's see if delete works. There's a question in the chat. Let's see. Do we need to check the status returned from the API? Yes, you can, right? You get that -1 or that 1, you can do some validation. If you get a -1, meaning you were not able to delete it, right? So then you would not do this. Right? So you get the status here. We're not looking at the status. But you could check and compare it against 1 or -1 and decide to either do the delete or not, right? I'm being lazy here. I'm skipping over that. All right, so let's see if we can remove a paragraph. So let's inspect the see if we get any errors. Okay, so let's put that on the side. Console. Let's see if this blows up. Let's click here, delete. Okay, looks like it deleted. Let's refresh. Let's see if we actually deleted. Okay, it looks like it did remove. Okay, excellent. So it is removing. Perfect. Excellent. All right. So let's keep going. What about being able to update this, right? So notice that right now we're displaying this header. Right? We're displaying this header. But really, what we want to display, same thing with paragraph. We're just displaying this title. Okay, and that's not really what we want to display. What we want to display for the paragraph is, whatever you type here, whatever you type there, that's what we want to display, right? And that's what we need to save or update. Okay. So let's work on the update. Let's work on the update. All right. So we need to make this so you can edit, right? And so where should we edit this? So because each one of these widgets is going to have its own form, it makes no sense to keep that information in the parent, right? We need to have some kind of intermediate copy or cache, and so when we say okay, right, we can do the update, right? So we need to be able to somehow notify that we are done. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, what we could do is we could pass these two references down to the component, so that as we are updating, right, we could be updating this widget right here, right? So that when you say okay, you save, this widget will actually have the latest thing, right, and then send it over to the server, right? So let's do that. Let's pass down to each one of these, right, a reference to the widget, right, so that they can update this widget that is being edited, right? Okay. Let's see. Okay. Also, what we might want to do is see if we can edit it first here in the UI, and then if we are able to save it here in the UI, then send it over to the server, right? So let's work with paragraph. Paragraphs is easier. Okay, so what we're gonna be able to do is what? Let's see. So we have the widget. Let's make it, maybe do a copy, a local copy of that widget, right? So that we can now edit and maybe put the value of the text here, right? So how do we do that? So we're gonna need the hooks, right? So let's bring the hooks. So it'll be use state and use effect, right? And we'll need to convert this into a full-blown function with its own return and curly brackets. There we go. Okay. All right. Okay, so what do we want to do here? So what we're going to do is that we're going to copy we're going to make a local copy of that widget right here, so that we can then edit it here, right? So let's do const widget copy, set widget copy with the widget copy. Wait, do we need that? Wait a minute. Actually, no, because we already have a set widget, right? We're passing down the set widget here, don't we? We have the set widget, right? So we could be calling that set widget as we edit, right? Oh, okay, so we could do that, right? So here we could say the value of the text area will be the widget text. Oops. Let's see. So we edit. Okay, there it is. Notice the lorem ipsum. That's exactly what we want, right? And the and what we want to be able to do is that as we edit it, right, and when we say okay, we want to save it back to the server. Okay. All right. So let's do that. So what we could say is that as we edit, as the text is changing, on change, we can say, well, here's the event. And we want to set widget to be whatever the old widget was, but the text will be new. Will be e.target.text. Okay, all right, let's try that. Edit. That's still not working. Why? Is that console? No, that's not it. On change, the set widget is this widget. I'm copying the widget text target. Oh, value. Okay, let's try that again. It's still not working. Let's refresh. Well, probably because let's see. Actually, widget. Do I really need to pass the copy of the widget? Just pass the actual widget now. The actual widget. Let's see. Okay, that works. Right, because this is what's being edited, right? When I call set widget, that is the widget that's being manipulated, right? Right here. This is the widget that I'm being manipulated and passing a reference to it, and I can modify its state here. Okay, so once we do that, I am changing that. So that means that when we say okay in the check mark, we can actually save it back to the server because those changes will be in the widget object, and we can send it over to the server as a put. Okay. All right. So let's do an update here, just like we did delete. Let's do an update. It will be update widget, and we're going to call it when we do it the check mark, right? So we're going to say update widget. We're going to say the ID of the widget plus the actual widget that we want to save, right? And we're going to do a put, and we're going to do the same thing we did for the create, right? We're going to have a body. We're going to stringify the actual widget data because this is updating a widget that already exists as opposed to creating a brand new one, right? So you're passing me all the new attributes, and we're going to put them in the server. Content type, we're going to get the status, blah, 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 right? And we are going to now, we need to modify and make sure that the local copy is up to date. Although, do we really need to do that? Yeah, right. We need to update that, right? So what we're going to do is that we're going to regenerate. We're going to set the widgets to be the old widgets. We're going to recreate the array, and as we iterate, if the ID is the same as the ID of the widget that is being updated, I want the new widget, right? So I'm going to say, so if it is, then I want the new widget. Otherwise, I want the old widget, W. Okay. Let's see, there's a question on the chat. If you click the cog on another widget, the value of previous one will be updated locally, but won't be updated on the server, which you're about to implement, since you aren't clicking save. Correct, you lose the changes. You're right. Yeah, you lose the changes on well, no, right, because yeah, if you click cog on another one, right, you won't be able, it won't save it. You're right. Yep. You know, you could do like an auto save. You could do like a little timer that every so often it saves, or you know, if you click away and you haven't saved, you can let the user know. Are you sure you want to lose those changes? So yeah. I mean, there's quite a bit of things that you could do, right? Depends on the interaction that you want to have with the user. All right, so let's try this out. Now on the server, right, this put is going to fail. This put is going to fail because there's nothing on the server that is mapped to this. There's nothing mapped to this, so it's going to fail. So we need to go back to the server and actually implement that, right? So let's go back to the server, and we have the delete. We need now an update, right? We'll need an update here. So we'll do update, and it will be a put mapping, right? We'll grab the ID, but we also need the new widget from the body. We're going to do a request body. So the widget, and we're going to do an update, right? So we're going to do an update widget, which takes the ID of the widget that we're updating and the new values for the widget. Widget. What is it complaining about? Widget service cannot be applied, blah, 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 blah. Long, let's see. Oh, okay, no, we haven't implemented. So this is widget, new widget. Okay. All right, so what are we doing here, right? We're gonna copy over whatever we need to copy, right? So what we'll do is that we'll first find the widget. When we find it, we're going to replace the widget with whatever you sent me from the client, right? So we're going to iterate over that. Let's iterate. And I guess we'll need the index. Okay, so if the ID equals, we could just say that the widgets dot what is it? Widgets dot set. Okay, the ID I to the new widget. So basically, we're replacing the two arrays, right? So the trick is to make sure that the two arrays, the one is being rendered on the client and what the server maintains are synchronized, right? That they make sense. Okay, let's see. I think you could cut the index instead of copying it. Actually, I don't believe I need the index. All right, so if I find it here, I'm just going to return a 1 that I was successful. Or if I didn't find the widget, then I'm just return a -1. Okay, so if I find that I can break out, I found it, I'm done. And let's see, the controller, wait, do I have an error? Oh, did I? I'm sorry. Is that what you were saying, that I cut the index? Index equal -1. Yeah, thank you. All right, so let's restart this. Oh, what about the controller? Is the controller okay? Yes, looks like it's okay. All right, so let's refresh. Okay. So yeah, let's change this paragraph. Let's clear this out. Let's look at the network. So if I select this and this is a paragraph, this is a test of updating a paragraph. Gonna say okay. I don't know. Wait, the network didn't seem to go. It didn't seem to generate any network traffic. Okay, so something's wrong on the client. So I believe we never called update. That's what happens, right? Yeah, so that's what happens, right? So here in the OK, so in this check mark, all right, so right now we're just setting the widget to an empty, but we want to do more than that, right? We want to also call update. Actually, what we could do is that we're going to call update widget. We're going to pass it the ID of the widget, right? So it's widget.id, and we're going to pass it widget contains the very latest state of the updated widget. Okay. And what we can do is that in the update widget, we can set the widget to empty. Actually, we better do this after we do the update, right? Otherwise this is going to fail, right? So let's put this inside here in update widget. There's our update widget. And what we'll do here is that we'll set widget to empty. Now that the update has happened on the server, we can clean this up, right, and just reset it. Okay, so let's try it out again. Okay, so whatever, set widget. Let's say okay. Okay, notice that it went out to the server. Let's see what the server says. Okay, notice that we in the text, right? We did that. Preview. The server came back as 1. Let's see. Let's refresh. Let's update. Okay, it looks like it's stored in the server. See that? Perfect. It did save it. Perfect. Okay, so that's working. So really this here of showing the title is not really what the paragraph should show. It should actually show the paragraph should basically really just render. If I'm editing, it should show the text area. But if I'm not editing, right? So if I'm not editing, it should just show the paragraph. Here's a paragraph with the widget text embedded like that, right? And no title. No need for the title. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to say OK. And the text, why is it not rendering the text? What happened here? Widget text. What? There it is. So it's got the text. Okay, it's got the text. Why is it not rendering? If I'm not editing, So if I'm editing, I render this. If I'm not editing, why is it not rendering this? Let's see. Where are you rendering? Li, the cog, there's a div, and the paragraph is empty. Why is it empty? And let me see if I can just render it outside. Oh, interesting. Widget text value. When I edit, oh, what? Oh, weird. Okay, so it renders widget paragraph widget list paragraph blah 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 type paragraph set widget text div. Why are you not rendering this? Widget text. Oh, maybe widget paragraph set widget editing. Text here. The widget that I'm passing. Oh, because only when I edit do I pass you the value of widget. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So I do need to pass this widget of what happens if I do? Right, because if I pass you underscore widget, that's not what I'm editing. Although I am, because I'm sending it to the server, am I not? Okay, I have set widget. And I when I edit it, yeah, it's not letting me edit it. All right, I'll need to fix that. I'll need to fix that. So basically, this is when I'm not editing, it shows that. I'll say, okay, it just shows that. I edit, okay. All right, I'll fix that. Let's. I do want to play around with this heading here. All right, so when I click on the edit, right, what I'd like to be able to do is change the text of the heading and the size. All right, so basically the same thing we did before, but now there are two things that we're editing, right? The text, right, and the size. And let's do that. So let's close this. Let's go back to the heading. So the heading, right? Here we're passing also not only the widget, but we're also passing the set widget. Set widget. And this is going to be the value of this will be the widget text, right? And the value for this will be the widget size, right? Right, and then here you have each one of the values. The value for this is 1, right? So this size will be compared against which one of these, and the one that's the same, then it will be the selected value in the dropdown. All right, so this will be 2, 3, 2, 4, 5, and then 6. So the size will be compared against each one of these, right? And then that will be the one that's selected, right? Notice that it shows 2. See that? It shows 2 because the size right now is 2. Okay. And the text is right now just welcome to web dev. So that means that when this renders, right, when it's not being edited, so when it's not being edited, should render what? When it's not being edited, well, let's not do the editing. Let's see, what should it render? What should it render? It should render what? Well, it should render either h1 and then the text, right? Widget text should render either that, or it should render 2 or 3 or 5 or 6. Right? It should render one of those. But which one do we choose? Well, that would be based on the size, right? Depending on the size, right, we would render one of these. Unfortunately, it would be awesome if this number 1 here would be a variable, and then it'd be awesome if you could do something like this, right? And just put widget size there. Unfortunately, you can't do that. What you can do it in Angular, but you can't do it in React. You know, JSX doesn't understand that, right? You can't do these. So the workaround is to put all of these inside of a conditional that says, you know, if widget size is equal to 1, and that, like that, something like that. See that? So we could put all these curly brackets at the end of each one of these, and then in front, right, we could put we could do that, right, and then either render one or the other one of these. You know, based on, depending on the size, it'll render each one of these. So notice that now it's rendering with size number 2, right? Because the heading is 2, right? So let's now see if we could actually modify these, right? As we change these, we like to modify it, right? So how do we do that? Like we did before, right? If we change these, right, on change, we would update using the set widget, right? So this would be the event, and we say set widget. We use the syntax where we get the old widget. We're going to copy everything. We're going to only update the text, right? So we're going to return the old widget, and we're going to update just the text. Will be the event.target.value. Okay. Did I miss something? I think I need. Okay, I need parentheses here. All right, let's see if that works. So if I change this, notice that indeed the text for the heading is changing. See that? And same thing for the size, right? You know, as I select a different value for the dropdown, so on change, if I change it, I'm going to take the old value. I'm going to set. It's going to look very similar to this. So I'm just going to copy this. Well, actually, let's do it from scratch so you understand. So we have the. I'm going to set the widget. We take the old widget. We're going to copy it, right? And we're going to override the size. I'm going to say that the size. Now the size is not careful here, right? Because the text, right, is characters, but the size has to be an integer, right? So we'll need to parse it and make sure that indeed it is a number. Okay, so we're going to say we do a parse int e.target.value. Okay. All right, so let's see if this works. All right, so for instance, so if we're editing this and I change the size and say number 6, it's still not working. Wait a minute. Size widget, set widget on. Oh no, not on click, on change. Try it again. Okay, there we go. See that? This size is now changing, you know, as I select different headings, different heading sizes. Right? And then we would save it, right? We say save, and if we come back, let's see, let's put 6, save. Okay, let's refresh, see if that worked. Okay, notice that it's 6. See that changed. So if it was at size 1, right? You know, a really big heading. It's okay. So refresh, see if that's saved to the server. Let's open it up. Notice that it did save to the server. See that? Excellent. So there you have it, right? Obviously, you need to fix up a little bit this the editing here, right? We don't really want the title here. We just want the text, the actual content, right? But now it's only showing when you edit. Actually, I'll leave that to you, right? A little bit of challenge. All right, excellent. So notice that this architecture actually allows you to drop in any type of widget, right? Right, as long as you can receive the set widget and the old widget for rendering, you know how to interact with it, you're all set. You can have any number of widgets in there. Next week we'll play around with some more advanced widgets. But these were some easy ones to get you going. So let's just review what we've got on the server side, right? Because that's mostly the focus here, right? We have a RESTful API, right? That allows you to CRUD widgets, allows you to update a widget. Again, the convention is that if you're updating, you use the HTTP put method. You encode the new data inside of the body of the request, which we are reading here. You also follow a nomenclature for the URL, right? You can start with /API, /REST, /data, right? Those are common tokens, right, to distinguish this from HTML content. Then you have the noun, plural noun, describing what it is that you are manipulating, adding, removing, deleting, whatnot, right? If you are manipulating a specific instance of an object, you also provide the unique identifier for that object, right? Both delete is similar, right? But it has no body, so we're not passing anything in the body. We use the delete method, right? We use the same URL, identifying the ID of the object that we're deleting. Notice that the URLs is identical here. The thing that distinguishes this is that this is a delete as opposed to this is a put. Also notice that these three, right, retrieving a particular widget, deleting a widget, or updating a specific widget, none of them require the context of who's the parent, right? So we're using just straight up, we're using straight up just the noun and the ID. Now, some of the other URLs do take into account the relationships between nouns, right? That topics contain widgets, the one-to-many. So this is implementing a one-to-many relationship, where one topic has many widgets, right? And in that case, the URL is a little more involved, where you specify the noun of the parent followed by the ID of the specific record that is the parent of all these widgets that you're either creating or that you are retrieving that are the children of that particular topic. Okay. All right, there you have it. All right, so that's RESTful. Let's clean up a little bit on the client side. Let's clean this up a little bit. Let's see. On the widget list, right? Right, all these guys need to be in their service file, right? So to do, right, all this, the same thing for this, right? To do delete widget, update widget. Okay, so make sure that you remember that. But I did want to talk about a couple of shortcuts that we took when we implemented the reducers. Okay, in the reducers, let's see. Let's talk about the module. Okay, so the module. Let's see, where are we? Modules. Okay, in the modules reducers, there's a couple of things. There's a couple of shortcuts that we took, right? One of them is that here we're using this string. Okay, it looks like the question on the chat. You've written, yes, thank you. Yes, I realized that. Thank you. These are strings, and they're constants, right? And that's a bad practice, right? So we need to fix that. Something else that we took some shortcuts as well is the following. Where is the modules? So here's the module list. Okay, a couple of things that we took shortcuts, right? So here, notice that the service is implemented in a separate file, right? And it's exporting that implementation, right? So we don't have the implementation of create module here, okay? And that's a good thing, right? We implemented this create module, update module, delete module. We implemented it in a separate service file. Well, this whole thing is referred to in the Redux jargon, right? It's referred to as the action, right? The well, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. This dispatch right here, this dispatch, right? This whole thing, right? We need to move it out of here and have it live in a separate file, right? In an action file, All right. So what we're gonna do is the following. All right, we're gonna create here under source. We're gonna create a directory called actions. Okay. The thing is that this is getting way out of hand, right? I mean, you could think that there might be quite many more different things that we want to add here, right? And so this would become very hard to maintain, right? So ideally, this would live in its own file, right? So let's do that. Let's do it for the modules, right? So we'll call this module actions, and this is a good practice, right? So this is module actions. So in module actions, we're going to just copy this whole thing right here, right up to here, copy, and we're going to paste it in here. Okay. And let's see. Actually, I guess we could have just copied this whole thing. There we go, like that. Okay, and now this becomes a function. Export const this function. See that? Hey, what about this dispatch? So notice that I don't have the dispatch here. So that means that somebody's going to have to pass me the dispatch as an argument. Somebody's going to have to pass me the dispatch as an argument. See that? Right? And I'm going to do the same thing for all these. Right? I could just copy this whole thing. Right? And paste it all here. Right? And clean this up. And basically all these colons become equal signs. Okay, and these are all exported, no commas. So let's remove all these commas. And let's put all these export const in front of these. Again, this is for good practice. You don't put everything in one single file, and you declare a separate action file, right? And you need to pass in dispatch as an argument. And we'll put that in as the first argument. There we go. Here. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to export this. We're going to export. We're going to say export default. And we're going to all of these, right? So create module, find modules, find update module, and delete module. I think we got all of them. Did we get all of them? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there we go. Okay. Maybe you want to give it a name, right? You can say const module actions, right? And then you can export You can export default module actions. All right. So now we can go back where we were before, and we can replace all this. We can replace all this and say, well, this is going to now become, we're going to import the actions here. It says import module actions. And we're not going to need the service here anymore, right? And this becomes, create module becomes what? This whole thing becomes module actions, create module, and it's the, oops, I think, wait. Go back, okay. It's on this side, sorry, it's on this side. This becomes module actions dot create module, and we pass in the dispatch, and we pass the course ID. Okay, see that? That becomes much cleaner and very much easier to read. Right? Let's do that same for all of these. So this becomes module actions dot update module. You pass me the dispatch, and you pass me the new item. See that? Okay, so now that's much easier to read. All right, let's do it for the next one. Module actions dot delete module, right? Dispatch, comma, module to delete. And finally, this one here, right? This is module actions dot find modules, dispatch, and then the course ID. All right, perfect. So now this becomes much easier to read, right? Other things that you might want to do here, right, is that these over here, instead of these being hard-coded strings, you know, you could declare these as constants. I would say export const create module, right, is equal to the string create module. Now, this is important because strings can't be validated, right? The compiler can't validate a string, but it can validate a symbol, right? So that, you know, if this symbol doesn't exist, you know, it will compile, it will give you, give you some squiggly line that doesn't exist, right? So in general, using strings as if they were constants, that's a bad practice. So it's a much better practice to declare the constant, right? And to use the constant and not use strings at all, okay? So if you declare these, you know, all these, right, update module, then you have a much better implementation here, right? Update module, delete module, and maybe find module for courses, right? And then you can go back and replace all these. Okay, and update module here as well. All right, which also allows you to, in the reducer, right? If you go to the reducer, you can also improve this as well, right? You can import all these. You can say I'm going to remove these, and this would be imported from, right? Import from the action. See that? Right, and you can do the same thing for this one, and just add it, and then this one as well. And this one. Okay, there we go. See that? Right. So, okay, this is much cleaner, right? And is using much better practice. And it's very common, right? In when folks are using reducers to to do this implementation, you'll find that quite a bit, right? So make sure that you follow these good practices. Okay. All right. Any question? Yeah, so next week we'll get started with the relational database, right, and storing this data permanently in the database, right? If there are no questions, I'd like to get started on the prototype. Let's see, any questions here? It says, when will A5 be due? As far as I'm concerned, it's still due on Wednesday. Does that remove the need for a default switch case? No, you still need a default one, since when it loads up, when it boots up, right? All the reducers are invoked, all the functions are called, and you don't know what the initial state is. There are no actions to begin with, and so there's no type. The action is undefined, so you have to provide a default state. All right, so I'm going to get started with a prototype. I'm going to use the following API. Oops, I must have broken something. All right, I'll fix that later. Oh, there we go. All right, I'm going to use the following API. Okay, Omdb API. It's a website that has information about movies and TV shows and things like that. Okay, and there's a free version of this. I pay for it because I use it quite a bit. Right, and they do a great job, so I wanted to support them. And they allow you to do things such as this, right? You can provide a query string. They're not RESTful. They're not following the RESTful standards, right? They provide it in the query, and I'm searching for movies with keyword Batman. You do have to provide a key that uniquely identifies you. I pay for that key. But there are free keys you can get. Please don't use my key. So if I search for Batman, it comes up with this result set of 10 movies that match my search criteria, which includes the title of the movie that matches, the year, the IMDb type, and poster. If you click on the poster, there's also an image that goes along with it, right? And this is a fairly summarized synopsis of the movie. No plot, no director, nothing like that. It also comes back with some meta information, whether it's successful or not, and how many there are in the results, right? There's 413 results, of which it's only showing the first 10. And so there's also the possibility that you can, properties that you can provide in the query that you can paginate, where this is the first page, and you can ask, well, what's the second page and third page and fifth page, so on and so forth, right? So you can jump around. You can also change the size of the page. So you can get like 20 or 30 at a time, right? And then paginate it after that. So this could be used for rendering or writing a simple query where you can search for movies by their title, and it comes back with something like this. And you can render it using React. You can subsequently take the unique identifier for one of the movies, right, and then use it in a separate query. We can provide the ID I equal to the ID, right, and then it comes back with a much more detailed result about that movie, right? So the title again, but this time around it comes back with the writers, the director, with the plot. You can ask for an extended plot, right? Or by default, you get this, this rinky-dinky plot. You can also ask for more posters, right? Right now, by default, it just returns one poster, but you can ask like for an array of posters, right? So that you can maybe, like create a carousel of images. It also comes back with ratings. You can ask for more ratings. You can configure what is it that you want it to come back with. So, different APIs work differently. Metascore, things like that, right? So I wanted to just demonstrate, what it is that we're expecting for the prototype, right? We'll get started today. but certainly we'll probably finish up on Wednesday. And that's what we would expect you to come back with a prototype. And the idea is that you become familiar with the API and make sure that you're certain that you're going to be able to fulfill those two requirements, right? Being able to do a generic query and then a subsequent more detailed query. Okay. All right. So to get started, I'm going to create a React application. In here, let's see. I'm going to go to web dev and 2021. And we're going to go to Spring. And this is section 1. So I don't know why I said 3. And so we'll create a prototype here. Right? So this is web. We'll say npx create React app. I'll call it web dev SP21 section 1 Januzzi. I'll say prototype. Right, and this is React. Okay, so that'll create the beginnings of a React project, which will open up and start see if we can query our client, right? Our middle tier. Our middle tier now is this server that has their own databases and whatnot, and we need to be able to merge the data that is coming from here with data that we store in our own database. So notice that anybody can peruse through this data. So this is publicly available. So even if I'm not logged in, I should be able to just look up any movie and whatever I want, right? Not until I want to review this movie and say, "Ooh, I love this movie." Well, then I need to know who you are, right? And then so I need to be able to insert in the database the fact that you, who you've logged in, you like this movie, right? And so I need to create a relationship between you represented in the database as a record and this movie also represented in the database. But this movie doesn't exist in the database, right? Maybe it's the first time that somebody ever is reviewing this movie, and so it might not exist in the database. So you have to check if the movie is already in your database. If it's not, you need to insert it. So what would you insert in the database, right? You don't want to replicate this whole data that already exists in a different database, right? Just copy all this and dump it in your own database, right? So at least you need to be able to copy the IMDb, at least that, right? So that now you can fetch some data from the remote server, and then you can use that IMDb to then map it to information that you have stored in your server, right? In your database, you might store maybe the title, right? Maybe you store the image, probably, maybe the image, okay, and maybe the rating and the year. That's it, right? But anything else, you can always go fetch this information back to the owner of this data, right? Which is not us, but IMDb owns this data. It makes no sense for us to, try to be more than IMDb, right? What we want to be able to do is augment this data with our own data about so and so liking this movie or hating it or whatever, right? So what else are we going to be able to? We're probably going to need to be able to navigate between the different pages, right? So we'll probably need to be able to install npm install React router DOM, right? So that as we search, we need to be able to navigate between the search screen, right, and maybe the details screen. The search screen might allow me to type the search and then display a temporary result set. And if I click on one, it allows me to navigate to the details page, right? What else? Probably we need, obviously, Bootstrap. We need Font Awesome. We need a whole bunch of other things. Redux, right? So probably we need React. We'll need to do Redux. And we'll also need React Redux. as well. All right, so we can open this up. Say open and load our prototype. There it is. And start creating some of these components. Okay, so probably we'll need a couple components, at least two. For the prototype, you need at least two components, right? So these are components, and you'll need the component search component. And we'll probably need a results component, a details component, sorry, like a details. So here, right, React from React, and then const search will render search here, and export default search, and then we'll have something similar for details. Okay, and we'll probably need to navigate between these two, and we'll continue next time we meet on Wednesday, right? All right, folks. Any question? All right, if no question, then thank you. Bye-bye.